with John Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Live show. It's Friday. We got 7 games here on the DraftKings main slate. Grande was the man on your playbook today. He's got that for you guys all over there at Fantasy Alarm to get you guys ready. You got a week left in the NBA regular season. So we got some funny business per usual. Waiting on injury news to come through for today's slate as well. Appreciate all of you who continue to tune in with us each and every day as we deal with the kickoff of the MLB season, taking some of the focus. Grande, how are we doing today, man?
Doing well.
Sounds like you're doing good. Sounds like you're doing good here again. You did the slate, man. Give us some of the headlines. What are we looking at?
So obviously DraftKings and FanDuel, simpatico, one slate 7, one's 10. So that's a good start.
Sure.
Golden State said they were going to play their guys on a back-to-back. They then listed Curry and Jimmy Butler questionable. So we'll see what Golden State does on the second leg. That matters for FanDuel. But on DraftKings, we got the midday Domantas Sabonis downgrade. That obviously matters quite a bit.
Yep.
Cade Cunningham is questionable. Who knows what Toronto's going to end up doing, but they already ruled out some pieces. We'll see on Scotty Barnes. He's listed questionable. No movement on the Indiana front. It's just going to be a lot of news, hard and heavy right before lock or post lock. So make sure, per usual, that you're near the Discord, near your phones, all that good stuff.
Agreed. Your top price overall guys on the slate: SGA, Tatum, maybe Cade, Booker, Sabonis, maybe again up over $10,000. Looking at the point guard position, the top overall projected owned player today is at the point guard position, but it is not the top spend up at the position. Does that make SGA any more appealing to you, knowing that there are higher rostered players on tonight's slate and SGA himself not really among them?
Yeah, I mean, he'll see a lot of Amen Thompson here, but it is a good spot overall. It's one of the only games on the slate that has any semblance of a close spread. So just by that default, getting SGA full minutes, I have interest.
Yeah, we're looking at least for now, and we'll see if that updates as we get closer to roster lock, like a 5% SGA, which is rare for the upside that he brings to the table. When it comes to ownership, Giddey and Halliburton are the two up at the top in this range. They're getting the ownership love up over 20% tonight. Giddey against Portland, Halliburton against Utah. Do you have a preference? Are you trying to fit them both in your lineup? How are you handling their spots today?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that Indiana's getting all this ownership without confirmed ins and outs, but it is a great spot. So, I like Halliburton in tournaments with or without all these guys, obviously. Looks great if this game can stay competitive, which you probably need Nesmith, Mather, and Siakam out for that to happen. But since the All-Star break, he's like 1.5 fantasy points per minute. That's, super elite. That's usually 10K price tag or better. So getting about $1,000 discount on the player that Tyrese Halliburton has been. And yeah, I mean, my only concern with Josh Giddey is the minutes, nothing else. And not to say that he won't play high 30s or not to say he won't approach 40. But this is definitely the healthiest the Bulls are going to be in some time. Dalen Terry's expected to play, or he's already in.
Mm-hmm.
So is Julian Phillips, and Lonzo went through shoot around and is expected to return. He's going to be on some type of minutes limit, but we've seen Lonzo Ball close over Josh Giddey in competitive games in the past.
Yep.
Because Lonzo is just a better defender than Josh Giddey. Will that remain true? TBD, but obviously the minutes have been trending a little bit in the wrong direction. That could be a hip thing. That could be some load management type scenario. But yeah, I mean, it's a good spot against Portland that could be once again super shorthanded with they have really not played anybody. Portland's like playing super small rotations when all these players have been ruled out. Simons could play here, might not. So
Yeah. This game right here, one of two that don't have a double-digit spread on this main slate, right? I think even the Utah Philly went up since last night. It's up to 16 now, in that game. So that's a little crazy. A lot of high game totals, but getting Chicago, Portland, in what is supposed to be at least relatively competitive with a 234.5 game total there. We did just get the let them know tweet. So we know that in this Cleveland San Antonio game, we will have Donovan Mitchell. He's 93. $100. Ahmed Thompson, $8,900. Working your way down this list. Anything stand out to you?
I cover Boyd, Shaden Sharp on today's playbook. You can find at fantasyalarm.com. Now, I think there's a lot to like about Shaden, specifically if Simon sits. Simon's listed questionable, so we'll see. But he's it's been super elite when Anthony Simons has been off the floor, including Ayton and Scoot, 29% usage rate. He has 33 actual points or more in back-to-back games. So the answer for me in this tier is Shaden by a wide margin.
Sure. When it comes to ownership, Garland is getting some love, as is Donovan Mitchell, around 20%. Garland over 20% there. But then we do kind of go down into the value range. Are you interested in anybody else, or do you just go down to Chris Paul, who is the highest rostered player in total on today's slate as of right now?
Isaiah Collier at 6,000. I think he looks pretty good. He's a fantasy point per minute with everyone that's out. The minutes have been solid. The volume has been solid. We know he's an elite passer. So probably Collier, especially if we do get some Indiana out, and you could see this game being a little closer. 2 top 10 teams in pace, or right around 2 top 10 teams in pace. Utah's right outside of it. But yeah, Collier. I think KJ Simpson looks fine at 49. I like the price dipping back below $5,000. We'd have a complete different discussion about Andrew Nembhard if Indiana's down 3 of their top 6 as well.
Yeah.
So Simpson, Nembhard, Simon sits. Delano Banton played 37 minutes yesterday, took 19 shots. He'd be 80% owned again.
Right.
It would probably be a scenario too where he soaks up most of the ownership that Chris Paul is currently getting. So then you can look at Chris Paul as kind of a contrarian play after that. Right now, he's the highest roster player of the day. He's going to play in a competitive setting, 28 to mid 30s minutes, which is too cheap at his price because he's still a fantasy point. Like when you remove Wemby and De'Aaron Fox, he's a fantasy point per minute player, and Jeremy Sohan, he's over a fantasy point per minute. So I like Chris Paul whether or not Anthony Simons plays, because I do think a lot of the ownership will gravitate to Banton, or you'll just have a scenario where most lineups are starting point guard, shooting guard, Paul, Banton. So
yeah, I was going to say, how do you construct your roster? Obviously, the Banton, Portland game is after some of these other earlier start times. But they are at the same time as San Antonio. So, do you build with Banton, then pivot to Paul, or are you building with both? Just with the assumption that one plays, and then if Simons does play, you kind of make another move there.
I don't think you could build with Banton. If that's the pivot specifically, you don't have to worry about it because those 2 games specifically start at the same time. Right.
So when you're doing your builds, would you rather build with Banton and then pivot to Paul? I guess would be the safer way to go about if Simons was to play,
or say 500, either one.
Yeah, that's fair. Shooting guard up at the top again. We have some dual positional eligibility, so a lot of these guys we've touched on. Donovan Mitchell is your highest projected rostered shooting guard for today. What do you make of Cleveland kind of getting some ownership love? The 241 total certainly is likely a driver of that, but they are also a 13-point favorite. I know Mitchell's been playing more minutes of late. Are you concerned at all of this game maybe not being competitive, and then we get those 28, 29-minute Cleveland games?
I mean, it is part of the conversation, but like me specifically on a slate that has 7 games and only 2 of them are slated to be competitive, you kind of have to take stands somewhere. Like and I've been the guy saying that I'm not going to predict a blowout all year. I'm not going to do it right now. So I like Donovan Mitchell quite a bit. I like the role that Donovan Mitchell has had, 50 plus fantasy points in 4 straight. The minutes are trending up. The implied points you obviously mentioned. The spread is crappy. At least it's a home game for San Antonio, but like the spot is elite. Like no Ty Jerome does matter because Ty Jerome's a high usage rate player. And
I did just get like a live update on the ownership. I don't know if you're seeing that as well, but now he was at 19%. He's now down to 15%. Simons, who we don't know, is now the highest projected guy, followed by Nembhard. So ownership dropping a little bit on the Cleveland play there as we were discussing it live. So
that's interesting that Simons, I mean, I guess because they didn't officially rule him out.
Yeah.
Is the primary reason they listed him as questionable again. So I guess you could see Simons playing. I mean, whether or not his ownership was 30 or 1, I think it's over the last 15 games, San Antonio's 28th in defense.
Yeah.
So they have no rim protection. They're starting. That's Bismack Biyombo. That doesn't deter me from playing Donovan Mitchell, whether there's ownership movement in one direction or another. I think he's a fantastic play if you can get there.
You're probably even a little bit more happy about that if you were going to have Donovan Mitchell in your lineup,
Yes.
that fewer people would be playing him. Say Simons plays, does that impact your cover boy Shaden Sharp for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So something to kind of consider there. Again, after that, though, ownership isn't really on a lot of these top guys. Kobe White at $8,700 from a guy we've always been playing a lot of. You mentioned, though, they are getting healthier. But Chicago does have like an implied team total of almost 120 points tonight. So a lot of points potentially going in that direction. And then it hits sort of the value range again. So again, this mid-tier spot, is there anybody you want to kind of highlight before we look at some of the value plays?
Nope. Probably if Cade doesn't play, like I didn't mention Sugar at point guard, but Dennis Sugar would be him and Beasley right here next to each other. But I don't love the idea of either of them. And you're not playing Sugar if Cade plays. Like that's
right.
That's impossible to get to.
Right. You have Keontae George here as well, $6,500, getting some ownership in the mid range. I know you mentioned Collier at point guard. Your Jacoby Walter play, now that RJ Barrett got ruled out, right, and maybe a little bit more appealing. Obviously, he played 30 minutes anyways, and we talked about it. He was the only one to get the 30 minutes last night. Feel just even better with him with the potential of Toronto ruling these guys out?
Yeah, I mean, I liked him. I mean, just knowing that Toronto's going to rule somebody out, just they have not played with a full team basically the whole last stretch during this tank. But over this last 5-game span where he's topped 27 plus minutes in all 5 and 30 in 4 or 5, he's been at 0.94 fantasy points per minute. Can't really ask for more at $4,400. If he's almost a full fantasy point per minute guy at 4,400, he's an easy click, and it could get easier if no Scotty Barnes tonight.
Yeah, agreed. And then Champagne is the other one, $4,100 as a value play down here. The minutes have been great. Obviously, they're getting some guys back, but they already ruled out Sohan. How confident are we in Champagne getting the continued run here?
I'm not, but I mean the minutes should be fine. I'm not saying they're going to be bad. I'm a little indifferent about it with Vassell back. I think that you're going to get mid-20s minutes. He can make a lot of shots. And if he doesn't, he usually doesn't play. So if you end up on Champagne over a Jacoby Walter, I think that's fine. I think Lou Dort is someone I'd look at as well. In the mid-range, he has a high ceiling when he makes shots as well. And I feel more confident about the Lou Dort minutes than I do about Julian Champagne.
Okay. Small forward position up at the top here. We've kind of talked a lot about Denny and the production that he has had. If you're looking to spend up, Denny and Tatum are kind of tied in ownership for today. Tatum obviously more expensive. Which direction would you prefer to go?
If Anthony Simons is out, I don't see how. Like if Simons is out and Jaylen Brown's in, I don't see how Denny is like how people play Tatum over Denny unless they're just looking for leverage. I think Denny would be infinitely a better play if Jaylen Brown were to play. Because I also,
Yeah,
like it's an amazing spot for Boston, but like Denny looks like Jason Tatum at $1,600 cheaper.
right. Yeah, right now it's crazy.
I lean Denny, especially if Anthony Simons is out. But I also think there's a really strong case that Jason Tatum is the best spend up on DraftKings if Jaylen Brown sits, because then you're talking about no JB against the 30th ranked defense in the last 15 games. You're putting, all first team NBA guy. It's just the price is just the only thing that's working against Jason Tatum in that aspect.
I'd agree. All right, mid-range plays for you. Again, there's questionable guys, some dual positional eligibility plays, DDR, Jalen Williams, Devin Vassell, all in that 7K tier. Asor Thompson, 68. Tari Easton, 62. What do we think here?
I mean, obviously, we have to pay attention to Sack here, depending on what happens with Sabonis. Both centers have now been downgraded today to questionable. Mark Williams was just downgraded. I have found the use of Nurkic ownership all day weird. I know that it's gone away now, but they had started the second half the other day with Williams and Nurkic. Siakam and Nesmith in. So there goes all the Indiana ownership. It's all
Matherin also going to play.
There is going to be a mass overhaul in ownership because everyone was for some reason assuming that Indiana was. They do have 128 implied points. You don't see that very often. No. That's a big number. Yeah, I mean Sacramento mid-tier looks pretty good. TBD on Tumani Kamara. Obviously, he left yesterday. Didn't get to play full minutes, but that game was well in hand. So it makes you wonder if he's only listed questionable, like if they wanted to push him or not. Asar Thompson ownership is interesting because there's no Tobias. So like obviously, Asar benefits from that.
Yeah.
But like if Cade plays, 6,200 for Asar Thompson is probably a little bit of a stretch to me because there's more ball handling for Asar when it's Dennis Schroeder or when Dennis Schroeder's off the floor and it's like Marcus Sasser.
Mm-hmm.
And that ball handling is just not there if Cade Cunningham plays because that is the full, like, that is where the offense is just runs everything through Cade Cunningham. So I am definitely not in on a 6,200 Asar Thompson if Cade plays. If Cade sits, then I think it's in play. I'd rather play a lower owned Tari Eason, who is essentially going unowned. And I understand that it's a god awful spot for everyone involved. I mean, OKC is historically good. They have 5 different players that could be any other team's best defender that they just happen to have as their 5th and 4th and 3rd defender.
Yeah.
But like no Dylan Brooks, we should see Tari Eason start. He should play 30 minutes as they use like a 3.5-man rotation in the front court with him, Jabari, Şengün, and Steven Adams. So, I like Tari as a pivot off Asar.
Your highest projected roster small forward by a good amount is DeAndre Hunter tonight. $4,100 Hunter. The minutes are, trending up a little bit. We know what his usage rate can be, when other guys are off the floor, but outside of Ty Jerome, like we're looking at a relatively healthy Cleveland spot here. Do we think that he's just going to get like extended if this game blows out? Like why is 35% of the field playing DeAndre Hunter tonight?
Well, one, the price is very good for DeAndre Hunter. I understand the role hasn't been elite. I'm there with the field as well. I like DeAndre Hunter as a value play. Without Ty Jerome this year, 3.5% usage bump up to 23%, averages over a fantasy point per minute, gets an elite matchup against the Spurs. And this is definitely a spot in a competitive game with how guard heavy the Spurs go that you could see Jared Allen off the floor and the Cavs are using their Evan Mobley at the 5 lineup. So I like DeAndre Hunter. I'm there with the field. I think that this is a spot we could see him late in the game in that like their version of like death ball lineup.
Sure. And then Bryce Sensabaugh is someone we've been playing a lot of lately. Now increasingly more than likely that this game is well out of hand. Does he get that extra run at the end of this game if they're blowing out?
I assume so. They midday downgraded KJ Martin. Cody Williams is lost for the year. They're down 57 different players. I have been looking at all the injury reports, waiting to get updates on their G Leaguers because they've had Shibwe and Micah Potter listed as questionable all day. So if neither of those guys play, they'll be even more shorthanded. It's a really, really, really depleted Utah team. And I think the good thing is if you do assume blowout here, which, this is definitely a game I could see it happening with how well Indiana's played. He played 33 minutes in the game. They lost by 38. So with how shorthanded they are, even more shorthanded than the other day, ruling KJ Martin out, it makes sense that Sensabaugh is going to play upwards. I mean, I shouldn't say what I was about to say because that implies Will Hardy's going to do something normal, but you should safely project Sensabaugh mid-20s, and I think that there's opportunity for him to play 30 minutes, which in any scenario, Bryce Sensabaugh, high usage rate guy gets 30 minutes, you're playing him.
Sure. Anybody else at small forward for you?
Anyone else at small forward? No. I do want to just give a shout out if you are playing blowout or just want to play someone for cheap. Sam Merrill at shooting guard is an option. He's been playing 20 plus minutes, gets the 3-point bonus on DraftKings. He's 3,500, and without Ty Jerome, they'll turn to Merrill more.
Sure. Power forward. Again, Tatum is up here, $11,000. Denny also, again, 2 guys, dual positional eligibility. Then it goes to Bridges, Mobley as your 2 guys there. Jalen Williams also, as we mentioned, at small forward. From an ownership perspective, it's all the value that we've already discussed. And then one guy that I kept trying to go by last night, and you kept on yelling at me for it, and that's Chet Holmgren getting some ownership love. Where are you when it comes to power forward tonight?
Yeah, obviously Tatum, Denny, we talked about. Bridges is trusting Miles Bridges in single entry and cash games is a death sentence because we don't know what head coach Charles Lee is going to do with their minutes. But in large field stuff, if he gets 35 minutes, there's a very high ceiling. We just saw it 2 games ago. But for me, it's Chet.
Okay.
Plain and simple. That I think when you factor in the spot, it's obviously not the best, but it's the OKC conversation that we've had all year. They boat race teams. They've boat raced more teams than almost everybody in one singular season in the history of the NBA. I think they're 1 or 2 of those games away from being the biggest, having the most blowouts in NBA history. You don't see them in a 6.5-point spread very often. This is the 1 and the 2 seed in the West, even though OKC's up like 14 games. It is 1 and 2. In 10 games that Chet Holmgren has played 30 minutes in, it's a 33-minute average in those 10 games. 18.8 points, 11.7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2.6 blocks, 1.3 steals. That is like 60 fantasy point worth of numbers per game in 10 games that he's played 30 minutes. The price and the fact that we get 30 minutes likely out of Chet here, if this game is competitive, is what is just too attractive to pass up on. He's been one of my favorite plays, and it only solidified when I saw those numbers when he is actually extended.
I mean, we know what the defensive upside is as well, kind of giving them the ceiling. And to your point, as you highlighted in the preview show, when you just look at it, you may think the numbers are a bit unimpressive, but because they are always blowing teams out, so he doesn't get the opportunity to play all of those minutes there. So I don't mind it anymore. Filipowski is the other one. He's one that does get the minutes and is productive. So if you wanted to go and play them both tonight, you certainly can. The ownership is around those guys here. Outside of just like, again, the bottom barrel value plays. Mobley is the other one getting a lot of ownership tonight, but we talked about Cleveland sort of already there. Anything else that you're in on in this mid-range, I guess?
I think Jabari is fine. I don't know where the minutes are going to sit for him, but I think they're fine. Three double-doubles in his last 4 games, 27 plus DraftKings points in 4 of 5. Again, they're down Dylan Brooks.
Sure. $5,400 for him. Not bad. Obviously, the double-double off the bench the other day was pretty nice there against Utah. Anything else from the value when it comes to the value ownership? Talked DeAndre Hunter and Sensabaugh already. Mobo and Sandro are getting some ownership love.
Yeah, I like Mobo. I'm not as high on Sandro. We saw this scenario the other day where Sohan was out, Vassell wasn't, and they played Bismack. And we don't know officially the status of Charles Bassey either. If Bassey returns, Mamu's not guaranteed for minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those weird situations where, like, crazy high fantasy point per minute player, so the tournament appeal is always there, but there's also the chance that he also, just like you said, doesn't see the floor or isn't productive. So any other value that you look at here at Power?
Let's go to center.
Center we go then. Where do you want to start? Nesponis is questionable now. Mobley's questionable. Or Williams is questionable. So what's your go-to center for tonight?
If Kate doesn't play, Jalen Duren. Miles Turner is fine. Donovan Klingen's solid. And if Mark Williams gets ruled out, Yusuf Nurkic is great. And if Sabonis gets ruled out, you can either go the Trey Lyles route or you can go with the Jonas Valanciunas route.
I mean, J-Val obviously super high ceiling, but we also saw him like get taken off the floor basically for Lyles the last go around when Sabonis was injured there. Klingen is where the ownership at least is for now. 20+% on him. Mobley with the dual position eligibility, and then Bismack around 20% with some of the ownership here. All right, so time to build a lineup. Again, I know there's some injury news that we did get, some others that we're waiting on. Where do you want to begin tonight's lineup?
One more. If Shibwe is active, I would play Shibwe. We don't know. I'm sure we'll find out eventually because Utah is 7 p.m. game. I don't know if 5:30 injury report should come out eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Which is about to be 5:30. So
it's about to be 5:30. So we might get that injury. We might get those updates literally as we are building this lineup. I guess we can kind of go from there. Again, just kind of looking at the ownership. We talked Chris Paul already, and I know you were in on Chris Paul. Waiting out the Banton news. Do we leave 500 on the table, or do we plug Paul in now and kind of see where we're going?
We'll have enough exposure to the 8 p.m. window. I'm not worried about it. Let's play Chris Paul.
All right, so Chris Paul's in there. You mentioned Duren as your center play for today. Is that your number one center?
No, Klingen.
Klingen, number one center for Klingen here. All right.
Chet, power forward.
Chet at power forward.
Hunter, small forward.
Why am I scanned? There we go. Chet Hunter at small forward. All right, 7,100. Good amount of money here to play with. Go Shaden, then pivot down to Simons if he's in.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. 7K for shooting guard, forward, and utility. Let's see. Probably get someone to come back in that Portland game. Would you prefer like a Kobe White or a Giddey?
No,
here?
I don't care for Kobe White at that price.
Okay. What would you have anybody come back in this Portland Chicago game then?
I don't think you need to. If you end up on Giddey, you end up on Giddey. If not, you'll be good without him. I like Donovan Mitchell for cheaper anyway.
Okay, Mitchell works. Yeah, especially now that the ownership's maybe coming down on him. That's $5,800 forward and utility. You talked to like Jabari. I don't mind going Jabari there at 62.
I probably wouldn't go him over others. Like I would play like Walter or Mobo or Sensabaugh probably would be the three values.
Walter. 7,200 util. Filipowski.
Yep.
There it is. Sharp, Mitchell, Hunter, Holmgren, Klingon, Paul, Walter, and Filipowski for you guys here. Again, we appreciate you tuning in with us each and every day here for the NBA show. Preview shows, again, continue for the Monday slate. We will be around in the Discord. You can find us on Twitter. Thank you all for stopping by, and we'll catch you later.